Hello, I'm Rogelio Garza, joined by...
Federico Lozano.
Adan Vela.
George Cano.
And today we're going to be talking about people only read when it's about something they're interested in. Y'all have any personal experiences with that?
Do people only enjoy reading something that they're interested in, or people only read when something they're
People only
interested
read whenever they're interested in something.
in? Okay. I would say no. That's my personal opinion. I would say no, that people would read things that they're not interested in if like it was like a task for them, such as like if it was something for your job.
So only basically only if they're forced to do it, then otherwise they wouldn't be doing it.
Not even forced. I would say because like I guess like the best example I can give you would be my personal experience. So for me, whenever I first started my job, I was supposed to take home this contract to read. Now, obviously, I didn't want to read the contract of my job, but I did it, and I wasn't forced to. They just recommended it to me. So I wasn't forced to do it, but it was a recommendation, and even though I wasn't interested in it, I still read it. So I think you can read things that you're not interested in, and you don't be forced to do it.
See, I can't believe that's something like that, because we read every day, like if you think about it. You know, we use like social media, we use Twitter, we use Facebook, we use all that nonsense, right? And we use it, so we basically read every day. But if we're talking about like educational wise, if we're talking about something to like broaden our minds, and that's a whole different level of like, yes, you can enjoy it, or no, you cannot enjoy it. You get me? Because like since we're little, we're set to stone. Like you haven't found your book, It's like no, I don't enjoy it. You know?
So what you're saying kind of agrees with what John Guthrie was saying, that how teachers need to understand how students are only going to learn and prosper in their classes if it's stuff where they're interested or have personal experiences about.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I guess it comes down to like your focus and like retaining information. Like I wouldn't retain anything that I wasn't too interested in, or I didn't feel like I was forced or supposed to know. Like that's just I would agree with what you just said. Like being interested in it is definitely a factor in retaining the information, but I don't think being interested in it is the only factor in the reason you're reading.
Yeah, I kind of go with that. I kind of agree, but kind of don't, because it's also depending how the teacher, or your like a reading teacher or your English teacher teaches it. You know, like you can read like the most like boring book ever, but like it's like how you read it and how you process every single page, how you kind of summarize it. You know.
So you're saying it's based on whoever the teacher is teaching. If they're not interested in teaching it, then it's gonna be boring for the rest of the class and all that.
Like if it's just like, oh guys, we're just gonna popcorn this, or like we're just gonna listen to the audio, click, you know, like it's like, okay, I'm gonna fall asleep because this other guy stutters while he reads. But then like if you do like kind of like a group thing, like okay, like you guys do this, and then you guys analyze it, and then this is how we build from one character to another character, from another character to another character.
Okay, I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I think that was a really great point. Yeah.
So another article I was reading about was what Asher Stern said about that students would be good at reading if their teachers would have introduced like their personal experiences and interest in earlier when they were younger. What do y'all think?
Well, I don't believe so, because okay, so how can you explain to a kid? Let's give an example, like The Giving Tree. That's such an easy book to explain to a kid, you know, like. A kid, like a tree can give and give and give, right? Like a person can give it to another person, like that, boom, connection. Because, you know, like you're a kid, so you get it easy. But how can you go from a personal experience from an adult to a child? Or like the only personal experience the little kid will have would be like the mouse stole my cookie, you know? Like.
Okay, so like maybe like kids' books. Like you're saying you'd have to be reading kids' books in order for them to be interested in
Definitely.
reading.
But then how can it also has to do with the transition from a kid's book to a fourth grader book, you know? That transition, that's why one of my favorite novels would be one of the Harry Potter ones, because the first novel, it's like super basic, super easy. It's actually a fourth grader book, so you just like bounce through it from like reading like pictures, Dr. Seuss, Happy Thoughts, and everything. So how can you expect a kid to be so interested in like one fish, two fish, to going from a love story, going from a monster in your bed, going to, you know, how can you connect those two? You know, like, it doesn't make sense. So I feel like if you just motivate the kid to, like, read and not be like, hey, this is boring. Maybe if the education system wouldn't be so messed up to, like, okay, this is why we're reading. You don't like it, I don't care.
Sucks to suck.
Yeah,
basically.
right? Definitely. That's what I believe as a future educator. I believe that. You know, like I don't want to make a classroom as boring as possible. Because let's be honest, if the teacher is boring, you're gonna be bored. You're gonna hate the class. You're not even gonna want to read their article. But if the class is fun, you engage with your students. You engage with whatever the topic is that week. Let's say we're talking about how to write a novel. You know, how to write a book. How to compose the correct sentence. You know, you go from composing a correct sentence to you writing a correct sentence, and then you read, connect, boom. You know, you get me?
Okay, yeah, I get you. I'm feeling the energy that you're bringing off right now.
I don't know. I think that could you repeat like the question again? I'm sorry.
That's fine. That Ashley Stern believes that students would be good at reading right now if they were introduced their reading styles of like their interests and personal experiences when they were younger.
Again, I feel like that's such an idealistic like answer. Like that's so like that's almost impossible to make a reality. And because like children, they don't have that personal experience to go off of, like he was saying. Like to say that, you know, to interpret that personal experience into a book and to have them be interested in it solely because they can relate to it, it's kind of not realistic. Just because they don't have that personal experience, they don't have that background to go off of. I can't think of like one of the most like books that is popping into my mind right now is like Fahrenheit 451. I mean, you read it in high school. You read it like it's pretty much mandatory for everybody. Like if you haven't read it, it's kind of weird. That book has nothing to do. Like I couldn't relate to that book at all. Like I wasn't in this like society where they would burn books and like the information was limited, like in communism kind of style. So I couldn't relate to that at all. But that didn't mean that I didn't enjoy that book every step of the way. I really enjoyed that book. I enjoyed the message of the book. So I don't feel that the connection between the reader and the book is defined by the relations that they can pull together, but instead by like the kind of like journey it can take you on. And that completely, like, again with him, I agree, that's up to the teacher, that's up to the educator to make it interesting to the students. But again, like I don't think that the interest itself is what defines like the quality of the learning that you're gonna get.
Yeah, for sure. So like for example, when you're reading The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, right? You weren't born there. You weren't like you're not a Jew. You don't know, you weren't in that era. But just how the writer wrote it, how the writer made you connect with the boy, how the writer made you connect with all the Jews and how they were like being murdered, how they were doing that. Like that journey, that book took you. Like those kids don't know what it was like. They're literally they're like, oh, Hitler killed so many Jews, blah, blah, blah. But it's like how he did it, you know? How the author of that book took this kid through the journey of the Boys in the Striped Pajamas. You know, like every single detail like of that sound, it's how you read the book and how, you know, you can't make a connection like To Kill a Mockingbird to like, you know, like you just can't.
Yeah, that pre-existing experience just isn't there for children.
Then would you think that students would be able to learn better if they had to deal with personal experience then? If maybe not reading, but what about learning in general?
Learning from personal experience?
Yeah, no, what about teachers taught it based off of their personal experience? You think it would have changed the same thing for learning, or is it a different story?
I would think that would. Of course, I think like anything that has to do with personal experience, with interest, I think you're going to do better. But again, I feel like this is more idealistic than realistic. Like, how would they even go about that? Like, I don't think that's even possible, especially because, as you said, like the education system, it's very flawed. Like there's so many problems that have already been exposed to it. It was designed over like 700 years ago, 800 years ago. Like it just doesn't work in modern day society. So to continue to go off of those same like core traditional fundamental beliefs, it's just I don't think it's realistic in this environment.
Also, like education system, they're not teaching you how to read. They're just teaching you how to take a test for the reading. You know, they're training you to do this test. They're training you how to read this particular speed. They're training you how to read this particular motivation, just so you can take this test and pass it. But after that, they don't care if you learn how to read. They don't care
if you're interested.
If you're interested, they just want you to have a high score. The school looks great. Like, but if we instead of doing that, instead we like sit down, talk to the kid, teach him how to read, teach him how to enjoy a book, teach him that reading isn't boring, just sit down and relax. You can use it to relaxation. Like, for example, if you're a middle schooler and you read The Perks of Being a Wallflower, it talks about depression, it talks about rape, it talks about every single problem, losing friends, your first kiss, your first sexual experience. It talks about all of that. So you're a middle school kid going through puberty, going through depression, going through anxiety, your first breakup, as a middle school, you're gonna connect to The Perks of Being a Wallflower rather than you connecting to Moby Dick, So
Okay.
it's just about how you read the book, what you do with that personal experience. But if you're trying to teach like an adult personal experience, then it won't connect to the kid because that kid hasn't gone through it. You got me? So
Okay.
I believe it's all about how you teach it, how you motivate the class, how you can motivate a student to learn how to read, to learn how to go out through the work. Because we read every day. Like every day we read, from a text message to a book to a class to a sign. So it doesn't really matter, Just learn how to read.
Because there's actually research done by Teresa Wise that she had a bunch of foreign language students that were trying to learn English as their second language, and she found that they learned better whenever the languages had to do with their personal experiences. They learned faster and they had more fun while learning it. Do you think that changes your minds or anything like that? Do you think this would maybe only for language, or could it be a partake for everything in class?
No, I never disagreed with the fact that being interested in a topic is definitely going to make you better at learning. I 100% agree that anything you're interested in, anything you can relate to, that drive, that passion to want to learn, that's what helps you stick. But to say that is the sole reason why people read, or that is the sole reason how you can further your education, I think that's just a fallacy. I don't think that's real.
Yeah, I totally agree with that point.
So George, I already know we kind of heard out your final thoughts, final idea throughout this little interview and podcast of ours. But Alan, what do you say your final idea is?
So I'm gonna go ahead and answer the core theory. This was what was presented. The core theory is I believe that people only enjoy reading when it's about something they're interested in, and I think that is false. I believe that before you can enjoy something you don't even know anything about, you can definitely learn about it. You can become interested in it after. I think that's fundamental. I think everybody can agree that you can learn about something you didn't know and definitely be interested in it and then continue. So that reading before you had that interest, that's just something that everybody does because you have to learn stuff. You don't come into this world knowing everything. So just because of that very fundamental idea, I think that this statement is false.
So could you say that maybe in conclusion, that students will tend to do better and pay attention more if the topic includes maybe stuff about their prior knowledge and interest, that maybe not all students are going to learn like that, but most students could be like that?
Definitely. I definitely agree that if you're interested in it, you will do better. If this is something you can relate to, you will do better. But I think that's very, very difficult to achieve in just a realistic setting.
All right. Well, on that note, that'll be the podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and goodbye.